Hello and welcome to this video. On this video we're going to be changing out the spark plugs on our 2002 Lexus GX 300. And this is a straight inline 6, so you're going to need 6 spark plugs. We try to buy the best made in Japan, so we got, in this case, NGK because they're the OEM manufacturer. Also, you'll need some anti-seize compound and various hand tools, which we'll show you along the way. So with that having been said, a couple of things first is make sure your engine compartment's cooled down so you don't get burned. And also make sure you always wear safety glasses like we do. And then now we'll get started. First thing we're going to do is loosen these 4 nuts that are on top of this cover here. So you're going to use a 10mm wrench to do that, or a 10mm socket. And so we're going to get that done. Going to loosen them all up first. And then we will need to pull this whole cover off. So it means we'll have to take it off, just the cover itself, nothing else attached to it at the moment. Okay, so I'll get all that done and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do after that. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is take off this connector hose that has a resonator on it that goes over here to the throttle body. To do that, you're just going to loosen these 2 clamps, and there's also a hose here that we may or may not need to take off. We're going to go ahead and take it loose just so we can pull this whole thing out and get rid of it. So we'll get that done, and then I'm going to show you how to take off the throttle body. Okay, before I start taking the throttle body connectors and things apart, I'm going to go ahead and take the battery off. So you always start with the negative. So I'm going to loosen the negative first, being very careful not to touch the positive. So it always comes off first, and you always put the negative on last to prevent sparking. So I'll take this loose, and then we will set the negative aside. And I'm going to go ahead and just put some tape on there so that there's no way that we can make any kind of connection and have any kind of problem. And then we'll get started on the throttle body. I've taken these 3 plugs loose. Here's one, the other one's right here, and the other one's back here. You have to be real careful because these are very brittle from age. And our goal is going to be able to take this throttle body and slide it out this way. Now there's a stud underneath that goes all the way through, and those are known for snapping. But what we're going to do is just check it out real carefully, and then we'll see how it comes out, because there's water lines here that if I can just pull it loose and swing it up, then I'll be able to get to the spark plugs. But if I end up having to take the water lines loose, it's going to make it a little more difficult. So I'm going to get this started, and then I'll come back and report to you what we find out. I've loosened this bolt here, and while I loosened it, because the body shakes, you want to have somebody hold it taut while you loosen these bolts. And then there's 2 nuts coming off studs down here below, one here and one on the other side. And then there's a long stud type thing that goes through here where a nut goes on the end. And this takes an E7 type socket, special socket, to remove. So we've pulled that loose, and we did put a little bit of penetrating oil on the other side to make sure it'd come off easily. So now I'm ready to take these bolts out and the 2 nuts, and then we'll see if we can just get this out of the way and enough to get to the spark plugs. If not, then we'll have to pull the water lines. All right, this bracket goes on right here. It's got 2 more nuts that hold it in place. You're gonna need to take that loose. And then once you've done that, the whole throttle body here is loose except for the water lines. And we're still looking to see if we have to take those loose. It looks like we're probably going to have to. But before I say that, I'm just gonna wheedle with it a little bit and then see what I can do. Throttle body is now loose. We can take it and swing it out of the way as we need to get to things. So we did end up taking the water line loose on this side. So we put a bolt in there so that it wouldn't leak water. And so now we've got it loose, and we're able to swing it completely out of the way. We also took the throttle cable completely off, and we marked it where it goes exactly so we can put it back together accordingly. So now we're ready to start doing some work in here. What I've done is I've taken the throttle body and moved it out of the way. And by the way, it makes a great time now to clean the throttle body. So like low speed idle air passages and things, get all that cleaned up. So we've done that. And now I'm going to take out this, it's like an isoelastic mounting type of system here that allows vibration to be between the 2 pieces without damaging it. So that's 12 millimeters. So I'm just going to simply use a 12 millimeter socket to take the 3 bolts loose. There's one here, here, and down here. So I'll take that off, and then we're gonna have access to the center channel to start getting out the spark plugs. At this point, we took a 5mm Allen wrench and we took the timing cover off. There was 4 bolts that held it into place. And so that came off no problem. And then we went ahead and, since we have access here now, we pulled the number 1 plug out. So we pulled it loose. Some of them you have to take the coils out. Some of them you have to take just the plug wire off. So the plug that was in there was a Denso SK16R-P11. And we're going to put a slightly colder plug in because we're going to be turbocharging this vehicle. So I'm going to get that prepped up, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Okay, I'm ready to install my first plug. So these come pre-gapped from the factory, so you want to be very careful not to affect the gap by dropping them or hitting them on anything. And we're going to use some anti-seize lubricant. Toyota doesn't necessarily recommend that, but we find that it helps to get the plugs out later. And so when you do use anti-seize lubricant, you're not going to be able to use the torque wrench because you won't be able to get to the right torque value. So having said that, I've put a little bit of anti-seize lubricant on here. You don't need much, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to go ahead and install the plug here in just a second. Okay, we've started the first spark plug. We've put it in here. We used some special pliers to hold the end of the spark plug so that we wouldn't drop it, wouldn't damage the gap. And then what you do is you take a socket like this and you turn it very carefully to make sure you're not cross-threaded. If it gives you any resistance at all, it's probably cross-threaded. That's a problem, because if you cross-thread the spark plugs, you have to put a helicoil in, and it's really a big effort. So what we've done is we actually have it snugged up. And like I mentioned, you can't torque it properly with lubricant on it, so I'm just going to tighten it up by hand. And it gets somewhere around 10 to 12 foot-pounds of torque, not much. You can just sort of feel when it starts to snug up, and you want to just go a little past snug. You want to feel that little compression washer compress. And like I said, you're not going to use much torque. And then you can feel when it starts to stop. You can tell I'm not putting much torque on it. Okay, that's probably about 10 foot-pounds of torque. That's all you do. I'm ready to move to the next one. At this point, what we've done is we've gone ahead and pulled the whole wiring harness up. Now, fortunately, the Lexus dealer had replaced the valve cover gaskets recently, so they had been leaking in the past, and there's a little bit of oil in there, but not too bad. So what we've done is taken the wiring harness kind of up and moved it out of the way, and we're going to actually go ahead and replace the wires too. We went ahead and ordered a set of those. So now I'm going to start with cylinder 2, which is here, go 3, 4, 5, and 6. Get all those plugs changed out. And then we got a few other things we're going to want to do. Since this is a 2002 vehicle, we ordered a new gasket to go here, and we're going to look at a couple other items. And we'll cover that here in the video in just a short while. It's been a couple of days since we started this project. The last thing I did was I replaced all 6 spark plugs, as I mentioned in the video, tightened them down very snugly. But we decided to go ahead and do a couple of things. And one of them is to replace the spark plug wires. So we bought this spark plug set. It's RC-TE79, made in Japan, which is awesome. We'll put a little dielectric connector grease on each of the boots, including the coil packs. You can also buy new coil pack pieces if you need to. The little blue pieces can be replaced. And so we're going to go ahead and replace the wires and get that done. And also, while you're in here, there's some small vacuum lines here that may need to be replaced. Ours were in good shape, fortunately, so ours didn't need to be replaced. But it's a good time to look at them while you're in here, and you can buy some bulk line from Toyota. And I'll show you that a little bit later so you can get the part number. And then, of course, we ordered a new gasket here. I'll show you that in a little while. So what I'm going to do at this point is go ahead and replace all of these wires, put it all back together. And also, we went through the wire loom and taped it with Tessa high temperature tape. It's made in Germany. And wire tied everything so that the wiring harness loom is in really great shape, so that when we put it back together, it's going to be essentially like brand new. So again, we'll get all the wires replaced, put it back together, and I'll come back and talk a little more. We've got the plug wires put back together. We have the cover back on here for the timing belt. And I mentioned earlier about hose. You can buy it bulk from Toyota. This is a 1 meter size 90999-92004. And Toyota offers it like in 2 meter, 3 meter, and then a whole roll. But you have to talk to your dealer to get the part numbers for those. Also, the throttle body gasket that goes right here, we went ahead and ordered it from Toyota at a great cost savings because it's a universal part that fits some older Toyotas and some of the Lexus models. So it's part number 22271-46070, and it's called a gasket throttle body. So like I said, we're going to replace that when we put this back together. So we're going to end up flipping the throttle body back over, reconnecting this water line, checking all the other lines, hooking up the throttle cable, and we'll put all this together. And then we'll tell you what we're going to do next. Everything is pretty much finished now at this point. Throttle position sensor has been plugged in. The water jacket, the motor drive for the accelerator is here. The cables have all been reconnected, and the vacuum line that goes to this assembly here. All the brackets have been put on. This whole thing is like sort of like isoelastically suspended in here. It's pretty cool. And so we're about ready to start it. Like I said, we've rechecked all our work, made sure nothing's missing. We haven't put the cover on here yet because actually we're not going to, because we're going to be tearing all this stuff out here in the next couple of days to start on a turbo project. But the main thing we want to do right now is prove that it runs. So we're going to reconnect the battery and we're ready to start it. Okay, we're ready to see if it's going to start now. So here we go. Ooh, started right up, no problem. Well, there's another successful spark plug change. Pretty easy, probably a 2.5 hour job if you have all the parts. So, thanks for watching our video. See you again soon.